Hello, everybody. It's Thursday, August 20th, and this is your Chapo. And for today, Felix and I will be talking about flamingos, and more precisely, the flamingo revolution going on in Albania right now. And joining us to discuss this is, returning to the show, is journalist Vincent Bevins, who's back with us. And joining the show for the first time is activist Bora Mema with the movement Together in Albania. Vincent, Bora, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Thank you. Hello.
Bora, let's begin with you. So what's being called the Flamingo Revolution is currently taking place in Albania right now. So could you just describe what was the inciting incident for this protest movement that is now roiling Albania that you are a part of? And like both the inciting incident and what you think some of like the deeper root causes that led to like the sort of rapid growth of this protest movement in Albania right now?
So I just want to start with the fact that today is the 82nd day of the protest in Albania. It has been going on for so many days as I see it as the most beautiful historical moment in pluralist Albania in the last 3 decades since the fall of the dictatorship. The reason why these protests were happening was, as probably some people might have heard of, it started as a project that Jared Kushner and Ivanka Trump wanted to construct in Sazan Island, which is an island in the southwest of Albania, and also in Zvernetsi and Pishpora Narta, which is the conjunction and the Vjosnarta Delta, which is one of the last wild rivers in Europe, not only in Albania. And it's a natural protected area where hundreds of bird species and different not just birds, but different kind of species are there, including flamingos, where thousands of flamingos have it as not just as a migration stop in the Mediterranean, but also they stay there the whole year round. But it's not just about protecting the environment, but it's also due to the fact that there are villagers living in the area of Zvernetsi, and they are being dispossessed by their private property. So it's not just the public land grab by in this project by Ivanka Trump and Kushner and Jared Kushner, or also some Albanian notorious oligarchs and linked to mafia, corrupt people in Albania. But it's also due to the fact that there is a land grab of communities who have been dispossessed from their private property. So there were protests for so many years, for so many months in Albania from the community, but also for environmental activists or left activists or other citizens who oppose the destruction of this area. And what led to this uprising was the fact that when one of the protests was happening in Zvernetsi area, when it's the area where Kushner and Trump and Ivanka Trump have been promoting as they are going to develop a new town of real estates, because they saw that there was potential. Like, Albanians are idiots; they don't know that there is potential to construct in this area. Thank God for them to come and enlighten us. So they, yes.
Hey, there's a really beautiful part of your country that's just going underserved for the tourism industry. Maybe you should check it out.
Yeah, probably we are the dumb ones that we are protesting. We can't realize the full potential as they are. So there was this protest that the community was protesting, and the police was there, and there were private security thugs actually from the company constructing, and who had already started to destroy the natural protected area. And one villager, one member of the community there were fences, like they had fenced not just the area, but even the beach until the sea. There were fences, and people were afraid. And some were even saying, this looks like fences in Palestine. Like, this is horrible. What are they doing to us? Like, are we becoming a colony or what? And so what happens is that one member of the community goes there, and he's dragged by these private security thugs who drag him, and the police is there. And imagine, there is an MP from the Viziabash, from my movement, and there is the leader of our party, and there are so many cameras from, not the media, of course, media is never present in this kind of things, at least the traditional media. So there are also so many citizens recording, and still the police is not, like, the citizen is being dragged and beaten up, and he is hidden behind the dune, and the gun was put in his head, and the police doesn't do anything, like anything. And this is what made people, one of the reasons that made people so angry, and they went on the streets the next day. And there were hundreds of people. What happened is that the government says these are paid by Greek agents. Greece is jealous that Trump and Kushner chose us to develop So these are Greek agents, or next few days we were Iranian agents. So this was making people even more and more angry until also an interview of Ivanka Trump for an international media. She was saying that one day she was in a yacht. I can't.
I saw that interview. It's
Oh my
great.
God,
She's like, as soon as we saw this, we just knew we had to have it.
Unbelievable, beautiful 1,400 hectare private island in the middle of the Mediterranean. We were on a friend's boat and we stopped for a swim. Effectively, that's how we found it. We swam to the islands. We went on a hike, barefoot all the way up to the top, and we were just captivated. And it stayed with us ever since. And over the course of many years, we developed the opportunity to help realize its potential and transform it, but with a lot of restraint and care because the land is so beautiful.
So she's like, I found this unbelievable, beautiful island in the middle of the Mediterranean, and she walked barefoot while she was discovering a private island, which is like, it's a big nonsense. Either if it's public because you just discovered it, so it doesn't belong to anyone, either it's private and it belongs to someone. So she doesn't even mention that it belongs to the Albanian people. It's actually that island used to be a famous military base in the Mediterranean. It's a very strategic point because who controls apparently that island? Okay, not Albania, because we are not a powerful state. But apparently there are many military experts who say who controls that island somehow controls the channel between Italy and Albania and Greece, because it's like a narrow channel in the Mediterranean between the Adriatic and the Ionian Sea, and it has been even during the Hoxha's regime. Like there are bunkers and military tunnels in case there was going to be a nuclear attack during the Cold War. So there are, of course, people who are afraid that why are the Trumps interested to get it? I don't know if it's conspiracy theory or not, but people seeing what the Trumps have done so far, or how usually the U.S. has, or not only behaved when it comes to international policies and not respecting international law. Some people were afraid.
So you're saying that this is not just a matter of Jared and Ivanka looking for like a private vacation destination, that like this could very well be the beginning of a actual U.S. military foothold in the Mediterranean?
I can't say that, but there are concerns from other people. I personally have no proof to. I don't know. Like, I want to be fair. I don't know. To me, even if it's just there, even if just pretending to develop it to a real estate, saying that they are going to develop tourism, but it's just real estate. They're going to construct town. They say we are going to be ethical, but no, you're going to construct 10,000 units of villas in one area. So this is not ethically and sustainable anymore. This is a new town in the natural protected area. So people were very angry, especially to her attitude of discovering an island, walking barefoot. That if anyone has ever been in Sazan, they know that you can't even walk with your slippers up in the mountain, up in the hill of the island, because it's like rocks and it's very hard. Like, I can't believe that the fragile Ivanka has discovered it barefoot. So there were even memes in the protest, like Ivanka Vespucci or Ivanka Columbus, and I have no idea how creative people have been. Like, I was so proud. Like, I'm usually not the typical Albanian proud person. I've tried to be very critical of ourselves. But that's one of the periods I've been mostly proud about Albanians having this sense of creativity in the protest. So yeah,
Bora,
here we are.
I want to talk about you. You mentioned that there was like the incident of this Albanian man being sort of roughed up by these the goons hired by the private construction firm. That he was essentially like beaten, had a gun held on him, as the Albanian police essentially just watched. Did that image, become sort of a stand-in for like larger anger about Albania being, just like that foreigners and foreign capital is more important to the people running Albania than the actual citizens of the country? Like I'm talking about, like there was a quote given by Prime Minister Edi Rama, who he said of like the anger over the Kushners buying up this island. He said, it's not about opposing Jared Kushner. He says foreigners are the first priority because foreigners bring money to the country of Albania. And like, did that quote also like add fuel to this fire?
There are many things that have been adding fuel to this huge fire. because the protest not right now, it's not, it's of course it's against the project and the natural, and to protect our resources and natural protected areas and our land and our country from what's so-called development. But it's also, it has become a big protest against corruption, but not just corruption, because it also against this model of development, as they pretend that foreigners or oligarchs will come and billionaires will come to the Albania. They are going to invest in the country, and this is how we will get jobs. Which, as for, we know, we have seen it not just in Albania, but even in other countries so far. When is the foreign capital interest to invest, and the people will gain? Like, we know that the money will come in investment, and they will go back in different ways into their pockets.
I wonder if I could ask something.
Yeah, please go ahead.
Yeah, Bora, you're a trade union activist and a member of a left-wing party in Albania. Could you perhaps explain what the state of the left was before all this started, and what you think the relationship of the protest to the left is as it's exploded over the last couple of months?
Due to historical reasons, being a leftist in Albania, or even a democratic leftist or a social democrat, is quite problematic due to the fact that we had a terrible regime, a so-called regime of the workers, the proletariat regime. It was Stalinist style since 1945 and until 1991. And for very fair reasons, most of the people would relate any kind of socialist or social democratic policy to dictatorship. And of course, even the neoliberal hegemonian narrative would push for it, that everything that demands social justice is going back to communism. So it has been a very and an extremely hard way for me and other activists in movement together to establish a new left party. But even before, when we were grassroots or trying to support the founding of new independent trade unions, it was a very hard one, especially to the fact that after 1991, Albania was part of this shock doctrine of deindustrialization, of massive layouts, of privatizations, people massively migrating, people massively being laid off. So under these circumstances, there was no labor movement. There were no trade unions. So it has been so hard to have this, and even the political atmosphere has been between the Socialist Party, which is ruling now, which is the Communist and Labor Party that was the monist party ruling until 1991 became more democratic, which is not. It is a party linked to the organized crime, to mafia, and who is trying to buy Trump now. Which, by the way, my condolences that the American diplomacy can even bought by one Albanian prime minister. Like, that's I extend my condolences to the level of where the American diplomacy has ended. So it's this party, either it's the Democratic Party, who is the official right wing, but they are the same, privatizing, corruption, linked to organized crime. So people are fed up. And before this protest, even in the election, although Edi Rama won election, but it's similar to other autocrats, especially in the Balkans, that they bribe, they threaten, especially employees in the public administration and their families and their relatives. They have to work to vote for the government, for the ruling party, otherwise they get dismissed. So under this atmosphere, it has been, of course, very hard. But I think a part of me wants to be thankful to Ivanka for that interview, because it was like the last thing that made people so angry. So it's not that there weren't reasons to protest and go out to the protest, but it was like the last thing that made people snap, and especially what was happening in Zvernetsi village when this citizen was dragged out. So I think there is an improvement, and I think there is a change in the political atmosphere, not when it comes to the party, although I'm a political party member, but to me, it's so important that we're having this social movement, that people individually are going out on the streets without a party calling them to protest. And they are on the streets. And for the very first time in Albania, in all these decades of pluralism, new collectives are emerging. There were no collectives left in the country. There was this narrative of being individuals, because collective means communism and dictatorship. But now there are new collectives of environmentalists, flamingos, people who play drums, kids with parents who paint in the streets. Like, it's like a festival of democracy on the streets, and you can see how people on the streets are smiling. It's not very often to see. People are usually very depressed and stressed, and you see people constantly smiling on the streets.
Bora, like in talking about the formation of these like new political collectives and like a sort of solidarity and individual political action that's not directed by a party. You said that like in the past, it's been difficult to represent the left or any kind of collective social values or social justice because of its association with communism and the Enver Hoxha dictatorship. As part of this movement, like are people beginning to think about capitalism or individualism and the kind of dispossession of both public and private property at the hands of international capital? Is that beginning to have similarly negative associations like with the dictatorship of the past? Like, are people beginning to see capitalism as kind of a different form of dictatorship that may allow for certain individuals, individual freedoms, but like essentially is selling off the country?
Okay, so I believe there is a change because there are more millennials or Gen Zs in the protests who we don't have the same traumatic experience as my parents' generations or elder or in between. So it's easier when people haven't experienced dictatorship in it's easier to be more disassociated and sometimes even more rational or less emotionally influenced by what has happened, which it's easier, I believe, to make them see that having being environmentalist or being feminist or being having free education or free healthcare or labor rights doesn't necessarily make you a communist. It doesn't make you not at all supporting the dictatorship. Quite the contrary. We want more. We want democracy in the public space. We want democracy when it comes to natural protected areas in universities and workplaces. We want democracy because we want social services for everyone, not just for the ones who can afford it. I can tell for sure that, of course, that they are like if before in countries like Albania or Kosovo or other small countries, I believe it's very common to see that we see US as the god, especially in Albania. It's a very pro-US country. Like we love the US. And sometimes even in the years before, whatever the American ambassador would say, everyone in the media would be like, oh, what does the American ambassador have to say? And probably not in very few countries people care what the American ambassador has to say. But in Albania, it used to be very let's say influential. And I see that things are changing in this regard, not necessarily a lot, but they are changing. And I think it's very important what we as activists during the years, even when we were not a party, have been constantly talking about that it's not just the political system. It's not just a drama or a corrupt political party, but it's also the oligarchy who is controlling the whole economy and therefore also the political system. It's easier to speak publicly against a drama, the prime minister or the politicians, but you get boycotted by the media if you dare to speak the names of the oligarchs who control all the sectors of the economy and they get public funds from our taxes to construct for healthcare or whatever. Or they get lands for free. They get for €1, they can get a whole land as they are strategic investors. And people can see that even the so-called socialist party is implementing policies and passing laws to destroy the natural protected areas, but also to give land for €1 or for free to so-called strategic investors who are just oligarchs linked to organized crime. And even this, what is happening right now with the Trump-Kushner project, they are linked with oligarchs and very suspicious people linked to mafia who have also been linked to we know them. It's a small country. You know who the criminals are. Or Albanians in Dutch trust, which raises concern also about the Dutch government. Like they are constantly being a pain for Albanians. Oh, you don't deserve to be in the EU. But how come that countries like Netherlands have these policies of hidden Dutch trust? Like any kind of criminal who launders money can use this kind of schemes. So I think it's very important what is happening right now. And for the first time, there are people chanting New Albania. Like before, you would have ethnical Albania in protest because people were like, they had no experience. And it's something that can invite them. Now people chant New Albania. Or they can chant they are chanting Rama in prison, British in prison, which are the two main politicians in the last 30 years, which is also an end of the transition and of this political system. And for the first time, people are yelling massively and to the oligarchy, down with the oligarchy on the streets, which I believe shows a lot. And
so Bora,
yes,
what would New Albania look like for you? So, like you said, you've been on the streets for 80 days, and it's hard. I'm sure it's hard and it's tiring. And I really appreciate you coming and talking today. I know you have to be at a protest, I think in a half hour or something. What does victory look like for you?
Oh, well, to me, and I really want to make sure that it doesn't represent the position of other people who are in the protest, because people have they are for different reasons. Some are just against the government, some are just for as the environmentalists, some are against the oligarchy, some are for everything, some are because their relatives or their children, like you see retirement income people, pensioners who have small banners saying, "I want my kids back. I'm alone." Because massively people are migrating because they can't find a job in this country. So the new Albania to me is a democratic Albania. And by democracy, I don't mean just the typical liberal democracy of fair elections, that there are not thugs threatening you to vote or buying your votes, as it's very common in Albania. But by democracy, I mean like a democracy when it comes to economy, to social justice. The new Albania to me is a country that there is a whole different way of development. So it's not a country that exploits nature, land, and gives it to foreign investors or to oligarchy, but it's a country that has a more productive economy where Albania is positioned differently in the global value chain, where there are decent workplaces, there are jobs, but not just more jobs so people don't have to migrate, but decent jobs and labor rights and organized in trade unions. It's a country where people can afford healthcare, or healthcare is for free and education is for free, when renting is not impossible because of money laundering, as it's happening right now, that people can't afford, because all the money is laundered in the construction sector and people can't afford not to buy, but even to rent an apartment. So it's a country where people they realize their full potential culturally, politically, everywhere. Because I know it sounds utopian, but and I know there are many people who say that whatever I'm saying right now is utopian, but I remember a phrase from Eduardo Galeano when he says, utopia is like the horizon. I walk one step, it goes further. I run few steps and it goes even further away. No matter how much I walk, I can never reach the horizon. So what's the point of the utopia? And it's exactly this. So we never stop walking and we would never stop advancing more and more. And this is how I envision New Albania. And probably for the next generation, the New Albania that I envision it will be something old. And I really hope it will be like this.
So do we have an open veins of Albania situation? If you're citing Galliano, is this a situation in which Albanians are standing up to the extractive capital?
Yes. I don't want to sound proud or bragging, but I feel like I'm quite sure we're going to win this as for a start. I know I sound too optimistic, but I'm very sure. I've never seen people so determined as I've seen in those 80 days. It has been extremely hot. People are in seasonal work, or there are no students left in Tirana because they are mostly working in their in tourist as seasonal workers. It's very hot. People probably go on vacation, and there's still thousands of people every day for hours. They march the city for hours. So this kind of determinism, which I've never seen, not just in Albania, but to be honest, not in many other countries. I feel like Albania, a small country, will set the example of a small nation with a big heart and bravery that will oppose and win neocolonialism, corruption, mafia, the oligarchy, and we will win.
So that go on, please.
I wanted to ask, in terms of winning, the Flamingo Revolution, it's very clear that you are opposed to both the current prime minister and the opposition party. You want them both gone. They're two sides of the same coin. Is there a political party or formation that you are seeking to achieve power, like through elections, or like what are the demands of the Flamingo Revolution, and like when will you know that that you have succeeded? Like, are you looking? Is there an election, a political party? Like, what's the engine through which this change can hopefully be enacted?
Okay, so as for a start, I have a conflict of interest because I'm a member of a political party, Ljuviza Bashk Movement Together, which is a democratic left party, which has been opposing this project since last year when it was not even very visible and they hadn't constructed yet. And since the government had been proposing these laws in the parliament and passed them with a majority, we only have one MP in the parliament, so of course it's quite hard. Besides speaking there, to do many other things. But we have been, of course, supporting the environmental organization Papanea. It's their name. They have been doing an amazing job in protecting those areas. So this is why I'm a bit. I feel like I have a conflict of interest when it comes to if I state that we are the only party. Although it's true, I feel like I'm biased, But unfortunately, Rama and Berisha, one of the main chants of the protest is Ramamburg, Berishamburg, which means Rama in prison, Berisha in prison, which are leaders of the both main political parties. Because even the opposition party, the official one at least, Berisha stated that he was pro-project. We should be welcoming of Trump, but even few other small parties in the beginning, which are of course even them right-wing, neoliberal or pretending to be centrist, they were like, oh, we are not against the project or development, we're just against corruption. Like, no, you should be brave. If you are in a political party and if you want people to trust you and you want to encourage people, empower people, you should be determined to speak up the truth and say, yeah, I don't care if it's the American president and we are a subordinated country. You should represent the interest of your own people. You are not a representative of the United States. You are a representative of the Albanian people, and you should speak up to their interest, even if you are afraid of Trump. So, unfortunately, Ljubiza Bashk has been the only way, which at some extent might sound proud that we are the only ones, but it also shows how shitty the political context around is of people who lack like a spine to be brave and talk about this. When it comes to the protest, this is a protest that has no organizer. So there are different groups or people who try to maintain the protest. It's a non-political party protest. So, for example, people who are even from our party, who is an MP or the leader of the party, they are not speaking in the main mic, and I believe that's the right thing to do. But many other people are engaged in different ways. The main demand, of course, is the government to resign, the abolition of the laws of strategic investors, and of making the natural protected area non-protected anymore. It's against not just people are chanting that they just don't. It's not that they only want for Rama to resign; they want the resignation of this whole model of political parties, and they don't want the oligarchs to be involved anymore. They want a different electoral system because the electoral system makes it very hard for independent or for new small parties to gain more votes. It gives more advantages to the two main parties. So there are so many demands. Some of them also demand to have a technical government before elections, so it's easier. They assume that the government is not going to influence so much the election. I personally don't believe that is going to change a lot because they control the economy. They have the dirty money that they bribe and they threaten people. So, but it's their position. So, although I think it's not bad, but I don't think it's going to bring like a major change. And of course, one of the things that I really like is that there are people who before didn't have this kind of environmental awareness, but being every day in the protest and seeing the flamingos and seeing how important this is, somehow you can tell how people are changing. I think the new Albania has already started, even if it's not necessarily in the with the resignation of the government. We have all changed. Like, I feel like all of us are better people. I swear. Usually Albanians are very grumpy in the sense if you bump someone on the street, everyone is like, "Well, oh, what's up? What you looking at?" But if you bump to someone in the protest, everyone is like, I'm so sorry. No, I'm the one to be sorry. And people hug and people smile and everyone is like, oh my God, what's happening? And I will share something. Like, there is a new environmental activist in the protest, and I got to know him in the protest. He became an activist because of this protest. And he said, I thought I had depression for years. I realized that I just needed this protest to feel good and to feel hopeful about what's happening. I realized I don't have depression. I'm just depressed because of how hopeless you feel in this country. And this is what I'm saying. The new Albania is already here. People are full of hope. They feel so empowered. I know I sound pathetic probably, but you
No, not at all. Not at all.
have no idea how it feels.
Yeah, I would love. Yeah, no, absolutely. It is not at all. It's the last thing from pathetic. You told me once before that in general you are someone that does the work of organization. That generally you believe in organization rather than rapid mobilization. But it seems that mobilization is what has come together, and what has been possible in recent history in Albania. In the short term, would you take as a victory just the end of the Kushner project? Like, would that be a short-term victory that would allow you to move on to other goals, or would that be insufficient for you right now? Like, for example, in Serbia, the students have been protesting Vucic for a very long time. They haven't replaced the economic structure of that company, but they did kill Jared Kushner's building in the middle of Belgrade, right? Like, so over the next few weeks, days, if it were killed definitively, would that be a short-term victory for you guys?
So, as I said before, we are already living the new Albania. And for me, even if it's just this, it's a huge victory. Like seeing how people have changed, seeing how people are empowered, seeing how people are self-organizing in different collectives, groups, who are not necessarily have a theme, but they are like, organizing there and so democratically and so patiently and so open. I think that's a huge victory for the long run, not just for today or for in the following months, but in the long run. This is a generation of people, even people who are in high school or new students. This is a generation that whenever it's going to be something else, they won't be like when I was a student, that my colleagues were afraid that would something happen to them on the streets because they could get shot, as it happened in 2011 in Tirana, where 4 people got shot in the protest. So people who have gone through this experience, for sure, they won't be easy to be manipulated or to be intimidated. So as for start, this is a victory. I'm still an organizing person. Like I still believe that organizing is very important, and mobilizations are also important to give like a lift, like what's happening right now, on when people are suspicious of structures. But in the long run, I believe that organizing is very important, and I believe that having organized structures and strategies is actually what is going to help us have a major victory beside like when it comes to the project, they are not constructing anymore. It has been since May that there is no one constructing anymore. And if I can also share something else, there were different areas in the south coast of Albania that specific bays were just fenced, and no one knew why. Like you wanted to go there, and the thug would be like, "Leave! Like this is fenced up. Like you have no right to pass." And there had been specific areas that you couldn't go there for years. No one knew why. And villagers of the villages around that coastline during the first days of the protest, they took the courage and they went and then destroyed fences. Can you imagine? People were afraid to talk to thugs, and now people in a village with no support in the periphery where they can more easily be threatened. They have no jobs. They are poorer. They can't find another job. They took the courage and they went and they destroyed the fences. It has been like 4 or 5 cases of people experiencing this. So I believe this is also a victory. Before, people were afraid to speak up even in the social media. Now it's like a competition of who has the best meme against the prime minister. So I think these are small wins. When it comes to the project, I would be happy, of course, if the project is stopped. That's very important, and to save our environment. Of course, our aspirations are way bigger than that. But I believe that we are going to go there. If it's not now, it's going to be soon. And this is why organizing is important. So even if it's not this protest, let's just think in the long run how people coming out of this experience will organize and build something for the long run.
Bora, you said you've been part of these protests going on 80 plus days now. I know as soon as you get off the phone with us, you're going right back out there to continue to organize and lead this protest. I guess I'm wondering, like, over the course of these 80 days and this protest, how have the protests been treated by the government and the police?
So in the first days, they tried, as I said, even before, they were trying to, in the media, to slander activists and different people as paid by Iran, as being paid by Greece, because Greece is so jealous of our tourism. And they are so jealous that Kushner and Trump didn't pick them, but they picked Albania because we are allies of the United States. So they are paid by, so they were even promoting AI pictures of buses coming from Greece. But they were so obvious, like it was, oh my God, it was like embarrassing for them. I feel so embarrassed that they are so bad at using AI for those kind of pictures. Or even the main political figures in the parliament, the head of the Socialist Party parliamentarian group, he was using AI to make less people in the protest. He used ChatGPT, I think. And and he is so stupid that he wasn't aware that ChatGPT has changed the banners, the slogans, and they were not even in Albanian. They were in, I think, Cyrillic or Arabic alphabet. I can't remember. And it was so embarrassing. Oh my God. So people are laughing. Or even a few days ago, there were some fires, I think, in Ohio, if I'm not mistaken. And there were fires also in Albania, but there are no fire trucks in Albania because the emergency fund, the Albania government decided to give it to Kanye West. I don't know if you've heard about it. But in
What?
July. Yes,
What?
oh my God, I didn't share that. I should have shared
What?
that. Oh,
Wait,
so
Albania's fire department has been turned over to Kanye West?
the emergency fund. So, so Kanye West have been boycotted in so many countries in Europe for his anti-Semitic statements and so on. So, of course, where do you do bad treats or stuff? In Albania, of course. And the Albanian government was so proud. Oh, we are bringing Kanye West in Albania. And they weren't enough people buying the tickets because, first of all, probably people don't like Kanye West. Second, the tickets were very expensive. So the agreement that the Albanian government had with Kanye West is they are going to pay, let me ask in Albanian, my colleague who's here, sa para mori Kanye West? 4.3 million euros. The Albanian government for the concert, and the Albanian government was even providing and tickets for free to people. Please go. We need to they want to fill the stadium. They constructed a stadium just for Kanye West.
Giving away tickets like it's land. And
yes, please go there. And they also provided 4.3 million euros to Kanye West, which was taken out of the emergency fund. 4.3 million euros for a country like Albania, it's a lot. Like, really, it's a lot. And it was from emergency
out of a fund that is supposed to be for emergency services.
Yes.
Yeah.
So we have no fire trucks. They send the military to there were pictures of firemen eating just bread and cheese while they were trying to fight the big fires in the forest. So what does this person, Paulian Bala, the head of the Socialist Party parliamentarian group, he gets pictures. I think it's from Ohio. Probably I'm wrong. So there was a fire, and there are helicopters trying to take down the fire.
Douse it with water, yeah.
Yes, and they take the picture from Ohio, and they pretend it's in Albania. And so it's a big nonsense. And yeah, because Kanye West got the money, we had to the poor MP of the Socialist Party had to take pictures from Ohio. So I don't even remember what your question was. I got so distracted by the fact that I had to tell you about Kanye West. So please remind me.
It was just overall about have the protests mostly been peaceful? Like, have there been any incidents of violence from the police or the government or private security forces?
So there were these slanders, as I said, all this kind of attempts or trying to individually attack people or say, oh, these are so. So right now, what is happening in last weeks is that I believe it's the government. They are saying, oh, it's Soros agents. 150 flamingos are meeting with Soros because Soros wants to take the island because he's against Trump. This kind of conspiracy theories this very absurd things. But I don't think they are going to stick. There might be some people who are very naive and they will, but I don't think the majority doesn't care. The majority is so fed up with what is happening, so they don't care about these conspiracy theories. But in the first days, the police, there was an Israeli-Albanian match in the stadium, which is very close to where we protest. So the police was like, oh, no, you can't protest. It's because of Israeli security and so on. And they surrounded the area and they had water tanks. But people didn't care. They just smashed the fences. They went there and there were so many people that even the police had to step back. But when there are days that there are less people, especially... so there was a tradition restarted in the last months that you go and you egg different MPs. So each Monday and Thursday, activists and citizens would go to the parliament in the morning and they would go and try to egg the MPs, which it was lovely to see them trying to hide or enter from different entrances and the police surrounding it. So it's what they actually deserve. Like, why are you afraid? If you have represented your people correctly, why are you afraid to walk clearly, openly on the streets? So, because in the mornings, usually people are at work.
They tried to use umbrellas, but they've all been given to Kanye West.
So the police, because there were hundreds of people, not thousands, because usually in the morning people are working. And there were cases that were quite brutal, like they were tear gassing, pepper spraying, exercising violence or trying to push people violently, and you had even not everyone was throwing eggs, so there was no reason for that kind of escalation. Or like the whole city was the central area of the city was like under curfew. They had been surrounding like almost 1 kilometer away from the parliament, so people couldn't walk there. This is how angry and afraid they were of being ashamed by being egged from
Well,
citizens. But
Bora,
yeah,
can
sorry.
I ask you something quickly? Correct me if I'm wrong. You mentioned like conspiracies of Soros funding the protests and things. Isn't it true that Rama is on quite good terms with the Soros
Yes,
family?
yes.
Right? I
Like,
mean,
it's funny because Eddie Rama knows how. Is very good at playing with any kind of side that he wants. He wants to appeal to Trump. He wants to appeal to Soros. So even a few days ago, there was a picture of him having dinner with Alex Soros in the south coast of Albania. But I
right.
think he did that intentionally. I think that's Rama, but that's my personal opinion. Rama did that intentionally. So people will say, oh, look, Rama is with Soros, the flamingos will meet with Soros, and Rama will control the protest. So the idiots of the far right or all are going to fall for this narrative or in the media. And I believe Rama is trying to be smart because he knows that no one trusts his Iranian, Greek, foreign agents who are jealous of Albania. So he's trying to use this kind of narrative. And it's very easy because the media doesn't talk about Trump doing the project, but is Soros trying to take the protest? Like you don't this kind of media, they never cared about representing the people's opinion in the protest, but apparently they are interested in the protest now that Soros wants to take it. So it's no one I don't think this is going to work. Most of the people know. Like one of the reasons why I'm very happy that this protest is so democratic and it's so people have their own agency. They don't. It's not just us as activists, but so many people have their own agency now, and they also see for themselves that what me and other activists used to be attacked and slandered for years. When they see that they're experiencing the same, they understand that even the years before, this was a way how the two main political parties were trying to divide people. And I believe that the area of, at least in our case, the conspiracy theories won't stick.
Bora, you mentioned early on that Albania has, at least has been traditionally a very pro-American country. Like you said, the American ambassador, what he says, people hang on his word. Has Albania, not just being pro-American, but has Albania been very pro-Trump? And like, has the right wing in Albania been very pro-Trump? And has Trump's son-in-law and daughter and their attempt to, despoil the natural treasures of Albania, has it made it harder to be a pro-Trump, pro-American political figure or movement in Albania?
Thank God, no. One of the good things, although I'm very sorry for you that you have to deal with Trump, but I feel like the huge favor that Trump has done to us is this kind of making people aware that this myth of the American democracy is not that real, because for very different historical reasons, like Albanians have always been very pro-US, seeing it coming from a communist dictatorship as they see it, and the US has been seen as the pillar of democracy and that is going to bring development and freedom even for Albanians, or the fact that Albanians were going through a genocide in Kosovo and it was a NATO intervention that's also helped for the genocide to end. So it feels like for Albanians is like we need to be grateful that they helped us in times of genocide and not necessarily being aware that the United States have also had their own war crimes and genocides and so on. But so it's very hard when you have this image and this myth that US is only about democracy and so on. I'm not saying it's not. And I think there are so many other aspects. I don't think the United States is represented only by its politicians. There are so many trade unionists that I personally admire that they are from the US, or social movements, or civil rights movement. There are so many great moments in the history of the United States that we should take as an example. So when Trump came as the president, Albanians are not, like, we have so many issues of our own, but they're not stupid. And they see how Trump is, and somehow it showed the real face of the United States international policies. So I think it somehow killed this myth of the United States being perfect and always right. when it comes to the pro-Trump, thank God we don't have a far right. We never had, for different historical reasons. There you can have nationalism or folklorism or people believing some kind of conspiracy, but not a very strong base. And I don't think there is a base for that to grow. So no, I don't see that. But as for Edirama, before Donald Trump becoming a president, he had the status in Twitter or Facebook, I can't remember, when he said that Trump is a disgrace. It would be such a shameful day if he becomes a president. And little did he know that Trump was going to become a president. And apparently Rama's attitude changed towards Trump. Like he's like, oh, the best orator in the world. Like even Bibi Netanyahu is the second biggest politician after Trump. So Rama is trying to bribe its way to get influence from the United States this way. As for Berisha, who leads the Democratic Party since 1991, speaking of Democratic Party, he has been pro-Trump, and they are really trying. They were even trying to have this anti-Soros Trump. They were wearing MAGA hats, but it sounded so ridiculous that it didn't give any kind of influence. Like, and then that's not just my opinion. Even right-wingers, decent right-wingers I know and I'm friends with, they're like, oh my God, that's embarrassing. And so yeah, it didn't. No, it's just lunatics, and it's ridiculous. So it doesn't have an influence. But on the other hand, this doesn't stop Kushner or Ivanka Trump or people who are close to them or Qatari billionaires linked to Kushner to come and exploit and dispossess us from our land. So what's in theory called as accumulation by dispossession, we are going through, as David Harvey puts it, we are going through that process of accumulation by dispossession. Either it's from our national oligarchs, others if it's from international capital or organized crime, or all of them together. Because to be honest, I don't find like a huge distinction between all of them.
Not much of a difference between organized crime and organized capital. Bora, we're gonna leave it there for you today. I know you got to go out and keep at it in Albania. So I would just like to wish you the best of luck. Thank you so much for sharing with our listeners about what's going on with your movement, with your party, with Albania. And just to say, once again, wish you the best of luck to you and all of the other flamingos out there in your goal of creating a new Albania. And really, our hearts are with you.
Thank you so much. I'm very grateful for this interview and for this, actually, it's not even an interview, like this chat we had, the conversation we had together. And hopefully next time we talk, we will be from a very new Albanian, from Victoria, and hopefully it will be an inspiration even for other people who will listen to this. Thank you.
All right. So once again, that's Bora Mema from Movement Together calling in from Albania today.
Bye, Bora. Stay safe.
Bye. Thank you.
Thank you, Bora.
Thank you so much.
All right, everybody. We're back now with just Vincent Bevins. And Vincent, actually, I wanted to talk about a piece that you recently wrote for North-South Notes. But I want to go off something Bora said about sort of right-wing people that she knows that are embarrassed by the kind of new right-wing internationalism of Donald Trump, where old European nationalist or right-wing parties are seeming to now having to I don't know, shoehorn themselves into a Make America Great movement,
right,
even though they're French or Albanian or something. And this is going off your piece that you wrote called Botched Coup Part 2. And I'm just wondering your observations on now the second term of Donald Trump and the ambitions of a global right-wing movement as led by Donald Trump and the inherently, I don't know, unstable or just the hard fit that makes for other countries now that have to sort of mold their right-wing policies and parties in the image of Donald Trump.
I don't know why, just a correction, I don't know why it's unstable. I mean, this is a young man who's in great health, no danger of dying during a mid-air sperm jacking incident. And even if he does die during one of those, his belief system is very coherent. So it's going to be really easy to follow it. Out of any of the ideologies surviving after their leader dies, Trumpism is probably, that is the safest bet, I would say.
It's the institutions
that's going to do the best.
It's not the man.
Yeah.
It's the crypto gambling schemes.
Ideologically, it's rock solid. He's built an edifice with no holes in it.
if anything, they have the problem of like too many good successors. Like between JD, Forgiato Blow, the woman who called a toddler the N-word and raised a bunch of money off of it. There's just like too many good candidates. And I actually think they should do the Ottoman thing of having them all fight a war against each other to determine the strongest one. Because I don't know. They're all pretty good.
Well, he's expanded U.S. power and influence so much that there's just a lot of spoils to distribute amongst his successors, right? Like the empire is so much bigger and so much more powerful that he could just, everyone could be the new president. Like everybody can just inherit all the power that he had, just that he got just 10 years ago before he remade the world system.
Viceroy of the Strait of Hormuz. Now it's actually called the Strait of America, Vincent. I don't know if you're aware of that. But, we've got that locked down so much. But I guess this is my way, like, you write in this piece, or rather you begin this piece with a number of quotes. One is from William Wolfe, and this is on the day the United States and Israel attacked Iran. And he says here, the fact that a billionaire real estate playboy who liked to slap his name on steaks and wine has proven a better diplomat and military strategist than every other politician and foreign policy expert over the last 30 years is such a damning indictment of the DC establishment. I honestly don't know how they recover. And this was more succinctly put by Matt Walsh, who simply said, international law is fake and gay.
Yeah.
And I think I'd like to make your point here. It's like, well, the people, I guess that means that the people who wrote international law, i.e. like the creators of the U.S. empire, were also fake and gay.
Right. And I think, so this is, first of all, I think you're absolutely right that the attempt to create kind of a MAGA international has failed. And like they really blew a chance. I mean, there were parts of the global right that wanted to join MAGA in some kind of a global reactionary movement. I read something like just 2 hours ago in the FT, the AfD in Germany, the Alternative for Deutschland is like their far right party is starting to realize that particularly because of the failures of Iran and the toxicity of like all of this American centric stupidity, even like the German far right is stepping away. But like those quotes that you read that I threw up on there, I think that they express something that was really truly believed by Donald Trump at some point in his life and is really a part of the kind of far-right movement that we've seen emerge in the era of social media, which is that Trump actually thought that the world system was a scam being perpetrated against the United States.
Yeah, definitely.
Rather than something that was carefully constructed in the wake of World War II, the moment in which the United States was by far the most powerful nation in human history and has made us remain the most powerful and richest country in human history over the last 80 years. There's this real idea that you could, from the top, just sweep away all of the mediating structures that were like woke and gay and holding you back.
Like you get rid of US aid and all the gayness goes away in the entire world. It was all just being held up by gay US aid, I don't know, volunteers or something.
Yeah, and you get rid of the United Nations and you have the Board of Peace. It's just like direct fealty to the U.S. executive. And then you try, for the first time in history as an empire, the first empire in history to ever try this, you make war all over the place, right? Like as if we didn't already have quite a lot of power and influence throughout the global system. And I think in the first time, well, I'll put it this way. At the end of last year, I was kind of afraid. Like at the end of last year when there was the rumblings about some kind of intervention in Venezuela, I thought Rubio might really do this and they might really pull it off. And when I say pull it off, I don't mean make South America more democratic or more free or even serve U.S. interests in the long term. But I thought that they might just attack Venezuela and turn the northern third of South America into a smoking crater. And that would, the United States, the U.S. right pretends like it cares about the flow of drugs. It pretends like it cares about the flow of migrants. It doesn't care about either. I mean, it wants to treat migrants worse when they get there. They care about that. But so it would cause those things to happen. But I thought they might just really go for it. And at the beginning of 2026, after the apparent success of that strange Venezuela operation, and it was in very limited terms, they pulled something off.
Well, you coined a term here to refer to Venezuela in particular, auto golpe imperial, which essentially it translates to, because there are all kinds of different coups in South America throughout its history. Whereas like in the case of Venezuela, this is a self-imposed coup on behalf of an empire.
Yeah, I mean, I think I made a joke in one of those posts that in Spanish and Portuguese, they have the thing that they say exists in Inuit, where there's like 100 words for snow. Like in Spanish and Portuguese, there's like a cornucopia of flavors of coup, mostly because of repeated U.S. interventions in South America. So you have all different types of golpe, and then you have the auto golpe, which is a self coup. And what that is when you're already in power, right? So if you're the president, it's not technically a coup, but you might sweep away the mediating structures below you to either seize more power, or it was often in the case in recent history, you sweep away the mediating structures underneath you to try to hold on to power. You sense that your power is going away, and so you sort of abolish all parts of the state that is not your direct power over a given territory. So what I felt was being attempted at the beginning of 2026 was something analogous, but that at the level of the world system, right? So the United States is already at the top. The United States has created all these mediating structures, international law, the world economy, the United Nations. There's all these ways, complex, benevolent and malevolent, secret and open, that the United States relates with the rest of the world system as an imperial power. And Trump, after this apparent success in Venezuela, seemed to think, and like a lot of the MAGA guys online seem to think, well, no one's ever tried just like shaking everybody down and asking for more money and wealth. Like we forget now, but like they were high on this Venezuela operation. They thought they were going to get Greenland. They thought they were going to create a new UN in their own image. Marco Rubio apparently thought that he was, going to get his family's decades-long revenge on Cuban socialism, right? And what we all know is the next chapter is that Iran was such a failure that this all sort of flopped, right? That it became clear that, oh yes, the reason we have so much power already is because of carefully constructed system built through, and like a lot of my work, my first book, The Jakarta Method, is about a lot of this, a huge amount of violence and imperial intervention that has been taking place over the last 80 years, but often done in a way which is carefully about constructing long-term systems rather than just showing up in a country like Serbia, Albania, Greenland, and being like, you have to give me that.
Well, like the point that you make in this piece is that, like, and use a Hannah Arendt quote to illustrate this, is that like for a country as powerful as the United States, or really any country, the more you see violence, the more the violence has to be enacted on behalf of this imperial agenda, the weaker the agenda is. Like the less you see violence, the more you know that power itself is contested or unsure, right? And I think about that in the examples of the killing spree that they've been on in the Caribbean Sea, where they're using drones to just fucking like execute Ecuadorian fishermen. Like for a country with the military, the size and strength of the United States, to just be killing fishermen in the Caribbean Sea because they're drug traffickers supposedly, right, is not exactly a demonstration of U.S. power. In fact, it is a stage play of the opposite.
Yeah, I mean, the idea that killing fishermen in open waters makes you look like you're more in control rather than less in control, right? Like I published another thing on North-South Notes, this little publication that we've launched in the last few months. I did an interview recently with the publisher of the publishing house for Brazil's landless workers movement, the MST, like that's the organization with the red hats that you might see around. And he said, he put it like this, because I asked him, but like, what do you think about this new, because they've had the opinion that the US has been imperialist power for forever. They're not like anti-Trump, they're anti-US, right? They're anti-imperialist. And I asked about this new phase, and the way he put it, I translated from Portuguese, but he said, when a beast is cornered, it lashes out in desperation. And imperialism in its current phase appears to be firing at everyone in every direction, right? And like that point that Arendt made a long time ago in that essay is that in conditions of absolute power, say like you're the prison warden and everyone's terrified of you, what you want, if you have absolute control, is everything's quiet. People are doing what they're supposed to do. They're printing their license plates for you. You don't need to enact violence because you have established absolute power. Now, it might be the case that all power grows out of the barrel of a gun, that somehow or another this control is established through violence. But at the moment that violence is actually appearing, that's when something is contested. And so, like, there's a lot of talk now about the decline of U.S. empire, the end of U.S. hegemony. And I think that started at some point, maybe the invasion of Iraq, maybe later than that, maybe 2008, maybe sometime in the 2010s. But even if it has started, even if the United States is less powerful than it was in 1991, it's still powerful than everybody else. And you can imagine a long and slow and painful and unpredictable decline of U.S. hegemony marked by this kind of desperate attack on the system itself to try to restore the power we used to have. And the way that all of that goes is up to human contingency, right? It's up to those on the margins of the system or at the center of the system that are pushing on the forces that exist in one way or another. I think, like, in some small way, what you see in Albania and in Serbia is populations standing up to a new extractive phase, a different type of extractive phase. Because, I mean, I don't know what is promised to Serbia or Albania explicitly by the Kushner family. Maybe there's no explicit promise, but you could see how, if you were the leader of a country in the semi-periphery, you would believe that it would probably help you somehow or another to build a stupid hotel for Donald Trump and his family, right? Like, you figure that's probably going to get you something. Now,
hey, at least you can have a golf course. You know, at the end of the day, at least there's a golf course.
At least
like that. Yeah.
At least half of Albania is transformed into a golf course.
Yeah.
And so it's a win-win, right? Like, it appears to be a win-win, unless the populations of Serbia or Albania impose costs on the potential vassals of Trump in his new phase of imperialism and make it so that it's not a win-win. It's a win and a lose. There are costs to carrying out this kind of transaction, because the decline and shift of U.S. hegemony could take a very long time to sort out, and it can go a lot of different ways, and it depends on the ways that we act upon it.
Speaking of extraction, you use a great example to illustrate this idea in the piece that I'm talking about, where you talked about when Bolsonaro was in power in Brazil. And Bolsonaro, out of like all foreign leaders for that time being, was like probably the most MAGA influenced and the most MAGA connected of any foreign right-wing president or elected leader that I can think of. And you said that, like, when he got in power, like, one of the things he tried to do was like get rid of essentially Brazil's like Ministry of the Environment,
right?
The people responsible for like apportioning out like how the Amazon is divvied up for like ranching or logging or like the extraction of resources from the Amazon. What did he find out when he was like, we're letting loose all the logging, like no more restrictions on everything we do in the Amazon, it's open season? What did he find out when, like, among the people who actually benefit from extraction of resources from the Amazon, when he tried to do this?
Yeah, they immediately turned to him and they said, "Don't do that." Right? And I think this is like, you have to. This is the kind of thing that, to succeed in like post 2015 far right politics, you have to believe deep in your bones. It's very similar to what I think Trump believed about the world system. Is that it's really easy. There's you could just walk into the Amazon and there's just a pot of gold sitting there that you can just pick up, as long as you slap the like.
Oh, there's some like environmental protesters who are like standing, linking arms, and they're like, "Oh, if only we could kill them."
All you have to do is slap those people out of the way, and it's free money, right? But what happened immediately is Brazil's national bourgeoisie, Brazil's agricultural, agro-industrial elite, which has like done very well over the last 25 years, including under the Workers' Party. They said, no, we need those mediating structures. We have to sell on the international market. It helps us to have a Ministry of the Environment, even if, like, just between me and you, we're going to like kill a lot of indigenous people and we're going to destroy the Amazon. We still want to have those mediating structures so that we can somehow launder our commodities onto the international market. Like, we have a good thing going. We're already extracting a lot from the Amazon. You can't just get more because you run around and say, I'm going to kill woke people. And like Bolsonaro, very tragically, like, I don't want to be like a huge downer, but I mean, like, he does starve the organizations in the Amazon that are supposed to protect indigenous communities. And he does starve the organizations that protect the Amazon of resources. And like, I think indirectly or quite directly, this leads to the murder of a friend of mine, Dom Phillips, who is killed while he's doing reporting in the Amazon. So this kind of a top-down attack on whether it be Brazil or on the world system, it has real consequences. Like, Iranians are dead. Like, Cubans are starving. Like, it can absolutely blow up for the misguided and moronic executive that thinks he can get more out of the system just by asking for it or demanding it. But it still hurts a lot of people along the way. And that's what I think quite a lot of the world is living through at the moment.
Well, yeah, I mean, like, and we've talked a lot on this show about Iran and how that's going. And like, we see like another manifestation of this idea that, like, the only thing that was stopping the United States, like circa 2016, from being a globe striding military hegemon and superpower, like the way we used to be, or the way we can bring that back is like that. There's just like, I don't know, the gender studies generals at the Pentagon and the United Nations, and they're just like stopping us from finally putting Iran in its place. And if like you're a guy like Pete Hegseth, you seem to actually believe that. And like, in the like renaming the Department of Defense the Department of War, like, I mean, in a certain way, it's more honest. But like he genuinely thinks that like the way he talks about, where he's just like, we're finally unleashing the violence that good violent men can do on our behalf against the bad people in the world. And he was like, we were just being held back. But like, aren't they just discovering now exactly what Bolsonaro did before?
Yeah, I mean, I think there was also a split in the U. I mean, there's parts of the U.S. empire, parts of the U.S. government, I think even parts of MAGA that were like, that's not going to work. Like, and they're not less imperialist. They're just a different type of imperialist. They're like, we have to pick our battle. I mean, I don't know. Everyone can speculate, but I imagine that Rubio thought that after Venezuela, he was going to get Cuba.
Oh, Cuba. That was the crown jewel for him. I'm sure he's probably furious that like they've now been bogged down for the last, like, for probably the foreseeable future with this losing war in Iran. I mean, they are starving Cuba, but like I'm positive that Rubio thought after Venezuela, Cuba was right next.
Yeah, I think he played, he was a good loyal soldier to Trump, holding his nose for as long as possible, thinking I'm finally going to be allowed to destroy Cuba in the way that has been my dream since I was a boy. And then, I don't know what happens. Trump gets on the phone with Netanyahu and he starts this war in Iran. And some parts of the U.S. state, some parts of MAGA are like, let's go do it. And some parts are saying, no, don't do that. Not out of some love for the Iranian people, not because they're less imperialist, but because they represent, in this analogy, sort of the Brazilian national bourgeoisie that's saying, actually, we've gotten all we can out of that region for the moment. It's better to go over here, and extract from this instead.
One thing that I find most remarkable about Trump too, and this was apparent even before the 2024 election, when you saw the types of people Trump was surrounding himself with at Mar-a-Lago. I think that a lot of the more normal-ish Republicans who, maybe normal isn't the right word, but like were more freaked out by January 6th, that obviously stung him. And he, in Trump's world and among the people who depend on Trump for like the billions of dollars that they've made off like crypto and all these pump and dump things during this administration, the people who never abandoned him after January 6th, there was a conscious decision to excise Trump circles of the Steve Mnuchins. That is like people who certainly have no special love for the rule of law or the anything more than the facade of international law, but prevented several disasters that would be close to, if not on par, with the disaster in Iran during Trump 1, just by virtue of like being the money guy and telling him, whoa, you're about to fuck everything up. I think even before January 6th, one of the most defining moments for what Trump 2 could have been, even though it seemed ridiculous at the time in like 2018 that Trump would return to office. Of course, this was at the time when Cory Booker was telling people, don't worry, you're not going to have to vote for Joe Biden. But it was when Rex Tillerson sort of left the Trump administration in a huff because Trump went to some Eagle Scout conference and told some weird story about deucing a girl on a boat. That was like the beginning of the schism between the Regency Council around Trump that would let him like get in trucks and honk horns, but at the end of the day, not really do that much that would break from the Bush 2 system of world governance.
Yeah, and I mean, it seems like, I don't even remember. I mean, if I'm recalling Rex Tillerson correctly, he seemed to be like the kind of an old school guy that had like sort of done U.S. global capitalist imperialism for a long time. He sort of had a certain understanding of how it worked, and you had to get rid of all the people that didn't believe in the MAGA dream, right? That you could just do whatever you want. You could just actually go out there. You get all the true believers. This is, as we all know, I don't think he expected to win the first time. I think that he wanted just to stay on TV, and this was a way to continue to stay on TV. And then, his particular brand of shocking racism, did really well in the particular political and media moment of 2015 and 2016. And so he had to assemble whoever he could get. This time around, he had the real loyal soldiers, the people that either believed in the project or would pretend to believe. I think Rubio's probably one of the latter.
Yeah.
Would pretend to believe in the project because he had his own stuff that he thought that he was going to get out of it. And they entered power with a plan and with people ready to execute it. And like, I didn't, like I said, at the beginning of 2026, I didn't know that they were going to screw it up this bad. I thought that they might do real damage. They still can do real damage with the elections in South America this year. They have done real damage, but I thought they might
the new president of Colombia, he's a real beaut.
Yeah, Jesus.
Yeah, and so, but I really thought they might sort of get away. I thought it might work somewhere or another that a very chaotic assault would not in the long term be good for U.S. empire, not actually help the interests of the nation in any way, but they would clear out a bunch of enemies in the short term. I thought there was a real chance they might just bomb the shit out of Venezuela, really just take Cuba in a way. Because there would be huge amounts of consequences. It would be an absolute tragedy. But what they're doing to Cuba is an absolute tragedy, and there's no consequences, right? Like when you're the hegemon in the world system, there's no referee. There's no one that says, no, you really went too far this time. And so I thought they might really destroy a couple of countries in a way which would totally change the geopolitical landscape for a long time and allow them to tell themselves in the short term, oh yeah, we got, just like they tell themselves, we got the oil in Venezuela, no one knows what that means. Just don't think about what's happening there. We won. That they might pull this off in some other countries. And I think Iran's resistance, the way that Iran responded to that illegal invasion and act of war was what changed the course of history in all those different parts of the world that I was worried about.
Yeah. Any worthwhile recording of this history decades from now will mark that as a turning point, I think. But I was right there with you. I mean, I was working on a series about the modern history of the conservative movement during the general election. It came out after. And obviously, we had to add a lot of stuff after the general election. But I remember at the time, our ending thesis, our sort of postscript for after the election, was it was very pessimistic about the future of Trumpism, even within this term, which at the time people thought was ridiculous. People thought that this was the beginning of certainly American decline, but still an 1,000-year Burger Reich. But even I at the time, I didn't imagine that it would be fucked up this bad until I don't know, the year before the 2028, the year before the 2028 general election stuff started, before the primary started. I did not imagine it would be less than a year from that infamous cover of that New York Magazine article about the 2 weeks where right-wing culture was really cool.
Yeah.
The Cruel Kids Club.
Yeah. That was that everybody, everyone, and by everybody I mean 65 people in media thought that they desperately had to cover for what they believed was some sort of deep cultural shift, and they put together a bunch of very serious pronouncements about it, and then nothing in the real world ever reflected that vibe shift other than the detritus of that media.
Wow. It turns out, once again, young people are overwhelmingly liberal in this country.
Yeah.
Vincent, I want to talk about back in terms of how demonstrations of violence speak to a deficit of power. And this really concerns me, in light of what you said about the U.S. empire maybe feeling its back against the wall and lashing out everywhere. That the more our power is contested or negated by Iran, and who seems to have checkmated us pretty well, I think we're going to see more demonstrations of violence against the entirely helpless, be they Ecuadorian fishermen, the people of Cuba, but also, let's be honest, the people of this country as well. And I'm thinking about that in regards of when I think when faced with the failures of an international project for this right wing, the current right wing of the Trump 2 MAGA movement, I see their current project as being one that's about essentially collapsing all difference between foreign adversaries or enemies and domestic political opponents. And I'm just wondering, like, what you think of that in regards to your first book, The Jakarta Method.
Yeah, I think we're going in a direction. So I think that we are seeing sort of a, to be use annoying language, like a peripheralization of the core, right? Like you're seeing more countries become like Brazil than more countries in the first world becoming like Brazil than countries in the former third world becoming like the United States was in the 80s or 90s, right? Like you're seeing in the broadest terms, like a generalization of semi-periphery status in the world system. And like thinking of the Jakarta method in light of what you've just highlighted, like it is true that in 1965, the United States government assisted the Indonesian military in the intentional murder of approximately 1 million people. But what is also true about that moment is that the United States government didn't want anybody to know that they had done this, right? They weren't out, LBJ wasn't running around showing off pictures of the dead bodies, right? It was precisely what was so valuable about the quote unquote Jakarta method to US officials is that Americans were not on the ground actually shoving the knives into the bodies, to use horrible imagery. They made it very clear to the local actors that they wanted them to do this. They gave them the support and the intelligence required. They said, if you don't do this, you'll be in trouble. But it was seen as a strength of the Jakarta method that it didn't have to be Americans doing the killing or they wouldn't get caught doing the killing. And also, once enough killing was done to secure the real goal, which was the creation of an authoritarian capitalist government in Indonesia, the real goal was not just the killing. The goal was the creation of a society in which everybody was afraid enough that you could have the Suharto dictatorship, which would allow for the extraction of natural resources, for the exploitation by foreign capital, which would allow for the country to flip from the left-leaning third world movement to the anti-communist American camp. Once that was established, there was no more reason to continue with the killing, because as horrible as it was, and it was in the service of the construction of a larger imperial project, it would have been insane to imagine. I mean, huge amounts of what the CIA was created for is to make sure that the Americans didn't know what we were doing in Guatemala, to make sure and then when there's I think I mentioned this in some other point on the new little publication, in the 20th century, when the New York Times found out what we were planning to do in Guatemala, the head of the CIA called the owner family of the New York Times and said, get that guy out of Guatemala. He knows too much. He's too good at his job. We don't want anybody to know what we're doing down there. Hegseth would announce that we had done it before he even succeeded.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
He would be like, he'd
be doing fucking push-ups in the killing fields.
Right. He's like, we're going to kill a bunch of Guatemalans in 3 days. And then he would fail. It wouldn't even work out and it wouldn't even work. But he would have confessed to a greater crime than he could even commit. Right. He would say, I'm going to kill 1 million people. Then he would only be able to kill 300,000. So it's a strange moment in which, as I said, with the auto golpe, it happens either because you think that the mediating structures are in the way and that you actually have a way to grab more power for yourself by getting them out of the way, or it's an act of desperation. Like a lot of the times that you see a self-coup in history, whether at the national or the international level, it's because you just lost an election. And so you desperately have to be like, well, the structures that are going to take away power from me must be abolished very quickly, and it often backfires. And so, yeah, I think that, and I like the U.S. There's spectacular repression and violence of a type that is very shocking to me, not as somebody who is shocked by U.S. imperial violence, but by the degree to which they seem to want everyone to see it. Right, like ICE, Minnesota, they want to see a college student kidnapped for writing an op-ed.
Well, they want to see a nurse get fucking killed.
Right.
But as soon as everyone else saw that, it was a huge fuck up for them. That was it. Greatly diminished their ability to continue, or rather, they're continuing their goal to ethnically cleanse this country. But they're they're smart enough now to try to keep it out of the front pages. When their, I think, voting base wants nothing more than for someone like Alex Preddy to be killed and have it be celebrated on a national level. But we're not there yet.
Yeah, and it's there's a strange, it's a mix of desperation and a mix of rationality, right? This idea that, again, I think Pete Hegseth really thought, we're going to win this war because we're not doing it woke. It doesn't make any sense.
Because we're going to win this war because we're going to start it by doing an unspeakable war crime.
We're going to commit war crimes, and I'm going to brag about war crimes.
They were too pussy to fucking blow up a girls' school. And we're going to do that on day one, and that's going to set the tempo, and we're going to win because we're more ruthless and bad or tough than everyone else.
And like,
And we've been fighting with our arm tied behind our back before, like, the million or so Iraqis we killed.
And like, I'm not a military history guy, but there's a lot of examples of really, really bad guys and really, really bad regimes.
I can think of one in the 20th century, one of the big examples.
That still make a show of showing some humanity to women and children, or some, prisoners of war or something, right? Like that shows in their mind, they show, we're going to decimate parts of the entire, Eurasian continent or whatever. But look how we have this humanity. Look how we, respect the rules of war. And even if you did it, you would pretend that you did. It was insane to me that Pete Hegseth would say, no, we're going to break all the rules of war, and that's why we're going to win.
I just connecting it back to the atrocities committed in America, the just first and second degree murders we've seen committed by ICE officers, and just the open bragging of the murder of fishermen, of schoolgirls, of just children and civilians all over in every single theater of operation, as the Department of War would call it. The thing that strikes me is, I think that's a very astute observation, that like the worst people in history, like every horrible regime you can think of, they would make a show of concealing their most brutal acts. And especially for America during the Cold War, to outsource those acts. And I think the peripherization of the core is a good term, but it's also, I also see it as like applying the principles of Gladio to America. That with all these ICE agents, that thing we did with Gladio, it worked so great, where we recruited a bunch of like Camorra associates and guys who flunked out of the mob to act as, I guess, partisans in case Russia took over Europe. But in reality, their job was just to commit false flags and murder the left in their respective countries. That worked so great. But how about this time, instead of getting even just like shitty low tier members of organized crime, we get disorganized criminals. We get like it's Gladio, but with like guys who tried to blow up their house because their wife deleted their stake account.
Yeah, like instead of suave cosmopolitan guys that went to Eton, that are schooled in the arts of spycraft and acting for 10 years without being detected, we have guys that do a really bad job and fail publicly right away, right? Instead of 10 years of secret success, we want 3 hours of loud, stupid failure.
George Smiley has been replaced by George Angry Birds.
Tinker Tailor Candy Crush.
Yeah.
And Tinker Tailor future U.S. Army soldier.
And there seems to have, I mean, that like Rubio's attempts in Venezuela last time were a lot of this, right? Like those CrossFit instructors that like got caught like in a boat off the coast of Venezuela.
Yeah.
And it was like,
those guys were amazing.
And it seems like, well, as long as we're, again, and it's really, it's horrifying. Like I was just speaking to somebody in Ecuador about what it's like to live on the coast of South America right now, what it's like to be a fisherman and think, well, maybe some idiot in Colorado is going to murder me so he can make a snuff film about how powerful America is, right? Like it has horrible, horrible consequences, but it seems like they're dumb enough to think that this like makes us look powerful, or that it will make countries do what we want. It's a very strange thing. And
like the full might of $1 trillion fucking Defense Department being brought to bear on unarmed fishermen, like just in open seas, completely defenseless. I think they genuinely believe that makes America feared and powerful in the world.
And what are they even pretending to want to achieve with that? Everybody knows
ending drug trafficking, cutting off the supply of cocaine in America.
That's clearly what the U.S. government cares about. And that's definitely what's motivating policy in the Western Hemisphere the last 75 years. We really don't want there to be any drugs in the United States, just like we don't want there to be any migrants.
Exactly.
That can be mistreated and exploited by the local capitalist class in the United States. Like I said earlier, like the idea that they don't want flows of migrants is insane. What they want is to be crueler and crueler to the migrants that come. And the more desperate they are, the more cruelty can be unleashed upon them. And yeah, I mean, I don't know. It's horrible because the consequences are real, but opponents of U.S. empire can count their blessings in this very short term, that the people at the top of it don't really care enough to think about how it works.
Yeah. The USS Abraham Lincoln story, I think it is a funny story, to be sure. But I think it's very illustrative of this break from both the order of American power established both during and after World War II, and how we more closely mirror the Third Reich now. One of my, there was a post going around a few weeks ago that I reflects something I've always found very funny about World War II discussions. People really tend to lionize the Wunderwaffe of the Third Reich. They love talking about these amazing super weapons that were either, a prototype exists or they made some sketches. The Wunderwaffe were always like, whoa, what if there was a train that was 100 miles long and had a big gun on it? What if there was a half track that weighed 1,000 pounds and moved at 3 miles an hour and took 2,000 guys to operate? And that is not to say that the Axis did not field some technically impressive weapons. They did create jet fighters in such great numbers that there were, I think, dozens of jet aces on the German side in World War II. But at the same time, the more practical stuff that the Allies created, I mean, I don't think a lot of people know that proximity shells were invented during World War II. And this kind of ingenuity, it did follow into the Cold War. Unfortunately, some of the smartest engineers that have that lived in America in the 20th century, they did spend their time working on weapon systems and planes, people like Clarence Kelly. But nonetheless, there was still this like dedication more towards like that type of ingenuity that we saw in like the Rat and Bat bombs in World War II that weren't as flashy or awe-inspiring as the Wunderwaffe, but about 1 billion times more effective. Now it is just the complete opposite. We are the Third Reich. There is no greater modern analog to the fucking Cretans and Odin worshippers that were drawing up the Wunderwaffe than Palmer Luckey and whatever his shitty company is called, and just all these things that I remember in the first week of Trump's presidency, he released a drawing of a plane and he said, this is the F-47. And now we have a 6th generation plane, just like China. And
he's trying to get them to redo the aircraft carriers as well.
Yeah. To fit. Yeah. And at the same time, we see Iran doing the exact same thing that the Allies did during World War II and using cheap, unglamorous, but incredibly effective warfare, the likes of which had never really been seen before. I mean, individual aspects of Iran's mosaic warfare strategy had been seen in individual components, but this entire strategy, it was the subject of several decisions that could have easily gone the other way. And there was no guarantee it would work. But everything now is just all these like concepts and sketches. And Palmer Luckey's company, which is sort of the face of this new shock and awe, amazing techno-optimism that is the face of the new U.S. empire, they are infamous for declaring like, oh, we've invented a fucking cruise missile that goes Mach 9 and it has a range of 10,000 miles. They'll announce it, they'll test it once, you won't hear anything about the test, and then you'll never hear it about it again, which is the exact same thing that would happen when the Nazis were like, oh, we invented a half track that's a mile high. And unfortunately, our sad, slow decline, it is not going to be we are not going to have an instantaneous storming of Berlin moment. We're not going to have a Battle of Berlin moment and just luckily have this end in 3 or 4 years. But it's it is such a stark inversion of the war that, and the type of mindset that created this American order that all these guys have decided was actually gay, and that all the guys who invented it, like the Dulles brothers, they were like Dirty Harry's boss, who was telling him that he's too good at killing people.
Yeah. All right. Well, why don't we leave it there for today? Vincent Bevins, thank you so much for your time. Everyone should please check out the North-South Notes, the new thing Vincent's writing for. We will have links in the show description.
Every subscriber is appreciated. It's free unless you want to help out. But yeah, we're trying to do something slightly different than some of the things that have become problematic, I think, on Substack. So we're trying to use the resources to at least once a month have somebody from some part of the world do some real original reporting and edit it in such a way that a reader could learn like what's happened in Kenya that I need to know about, or what's happened in Brazil, in a way that you may not always click on that, but it'll be something that is interesting for a regular person. So yeah, that's what we've been doing. We appreciate any support.
Yeah, everyone, please check out North-South Notes and like and subscribe. Once again, Vincent, thanks so much for hanging out with us today. Chris, do we have anything to promo?
No, show's sold out. I mean, Chunks is still there to check out on VOD. Link will still be in the description. But other than that, we're chilling for now.
New season of Players Club.
Yeah, listen to Players Club.
Yeah, Players Club season 2. It has debuted today, our first episode.
About demon souls, correct?
Yeah, demon souls with long-suffering, but I think one of the world's greatest DMs in patches. Very fun episode. If my voice is a little hoarse, it's because I finished a combined 22 hours about Elden Ring, podcasting about Elden Ring over 2 days earlier this week. But no, I'm very excited for people to hear this season. I was very conscious to avoid some of the more cliched topics around FromSoft games, and even if you don't enjoy it, there is about like 70 hours of content over 8 episodes at least. So if you're in prison, definitely listen to this. This is going to make the day. If you're Andy Dufresne, grab the speakerphone and play this over the yard. Everyone's going to love it.
All right, that does it for today. Till next time, everybody. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.